be aware we are now recording. And so just you are all forewarned. And so if you're having some technical issues, it'd be great if you can speak up in the chat, or else and we'll go over how you use the chat in just a second. So if you don't know what I mean by using chat, we'll get there. We're going and that leads right into the next bullet point I have. We'll be going through the Zoom controls in just a few minutes, so you'll see what's necessary for assembly. A couple of things about setup. If you get a message from the Zoom saying your internet bandwidth is low, that means that your internet speed is having a hard time keeping up with taking everything in from the Zoom meeting. And the best way to free up some bandwidth for you when you're on a Zoom meeting is turning off your video. And so if you turn off your video, that should allow the audio to keep coming through with as little interruption as possible. And so you can still participate in the meeting. And so if you're getting that message that your internet bandwidth is low, turn off the video, and that will be, and again, we'll go over how you do the video off and on and all that in just a second. And then for those who are on a little bit earlier, just as far as setup goes, if you kind of scroll through the different people on, you'll notice that, you know, as I'm looking through right now, you all actually, those who have their video on are set up pretty well at this point. But if you're backlit on Zoom, that means if the lighting is behind you, so either by windows or the light is behind you, you tend to be come through it's like a silhouette of you, and so that makes it very difficult for the rest of us to see your face and to see who you are. And so when you're thinking about how you're participating in the Zoom meeting, thinking about lighting is good. So lots of light is the best, and to have that light in front of you is important as well. And let's see. So now just a couple of things about the meeting controls. Right now I am spotlighted, and I'm gonna remove my spotlight so that you have so that you can see what your screen normally is. If you move your cursor up to the across your screen, up in the very top right hand corner, there's a view icon. And if you click on that, there should be 3 options that drop down in the little menu. One is speaker view, and that will highlight the person that is speaking, or it should highlight the person that is speaking. The other one is gallery view. And if you switch to gallery, that'll pull up each device that is on this meeting. And right now we have 50 devices on this meeting. And so that is more than fits on one screen. And so when you're on gallery view, if you move your cursor across your screen, an arrow will show up on pointing to the right, and on the right hand side, and one pointing to the left on the left hand side, and you can move back and forth that way. And so for the assembly, oftentimes what I'm going to do is simply spotlight the main person. And so the production site will be spotlighted, and so the default will be that video large, and then smaller, everybody else in smaller screens and smaller boxes on the side. And like my computer, it only has me big, and then I have 4 small boxes next to me is kind of what it jumps to into when a video is spotlighted. But that for something like Senate Assembly, having the spotlight or the speaker view is generally best. And then there'll be times when maybe when we move into other parts of the assembly where it might make sense to see more of the boxes, but that's just how you toggle back and forth through the views. The next zoom control will, so now if you move your cursor across the screen again, we'll move down to the bottom and we'll start on the left-hand side. And you should have a pretty broad menu that pulls up across the bottom. And on the left, the very bottom left corner will be the mute and unmute button. And so yours all should have it'll be a microphone icon and it'll be red with a line through it. And so that's because you're muted. And when you're muted, and so that's what happens when you're muted. You can keep talking, but nobody else can hear you because the Zoom has turned off your mute. Next to the mute button down in that menu is the stop video, or is the video icon. It's a start stop video control. And so again, if your bandwidth is low, stop your video. Otherwise, it's one of the blessings of Senate Assembly is gathering together. And so it's great if you can have your video on, and so that we can see your lovely faces, and we have a way of being together even apart across time and across distance. And so, but that's an important control to know where that is. That start and stop video. Then the next icon over is the participants. If you click on that, then another window will show up if you're in full screen mode, and it'll list every device that's on the that's connected to the Zoom meeting. So you can see everybody who's here. And so that participants, that's what that's about. And then the one that's kind of right in the center is the chat. And so if you click on that one, if you tap on the chat button, again, another video or another window will pop up. And as Mary Morrow, our director for Evangelical Mission, just did, she typed a message and said hello to everyone. And so you can send a message to everybody on the on the Zoom meeting, or in that chat window, it'll say to, and it'll say everyone in the meeting, or you can, all the participants will show up in that list. And so you can also send a direct message just to one other participant in the meeting. And the chat function is something that we're going to use throughout assembly at different times. And so it's important to know where that control is at. The next one is the share screen. It's a green button. And if you try to press on that, it's going to give you a message that says host disabled participant screen sharing. So you can click on that all you want, and it won't do you anything more than give you that error message. So you don't need to worry about that. The same with the record. You cannot record this meeting on your own devices, and so that control is going to do not going to be any help for you all. But the important one is the one on the bottom, on the right-hand side of the bottom there, the reactions. And so if you tap on that one, a whole kind of there's a whole bunch of different options shows up. You get little clappy hands. You have a thumbs up. You have laughing so hard that tears are coming down. You have a surprised or a wow face, and a heart, and the celebratory kind of confetti coming out. Those are great to say, yay, or to react to what's going on. Those ones on the top, they'll be up for about 10 seconds and then they disappear. And so you can use those throughout the assembly, and that's fine. And that's a good way to let others know while you're muted and without disrupting the whole meeting, kind of what you think is going on. But it's that middle row where there's those ones are going to be helpful, especially the green check and the red X. And so so if you click the anyone in the middle row, those and you'll see a little check mark come up next to your video square. And also if you have a participant list show up, you'll also see that I think you'll see, yeah, you'll see the check. Everybody that has a check has you'll see that they have a little green check by them, and everybody that has a red X, you'll see like Seth Rummage up in at St. Paul Chewelah, he's just saying no right now. And so those yes and nos we might use at different times throughout assembly for simple actions. For example, passing the assembly rules or passing the budgets. We can simply, those things that would be done by simply voice acclamation when they're typically in person. We can either do over voice acclamation here on Zoom, but we could also use those green yeses and nos to just get a quick sense of the room. Or maybe we've been sitting for a while and we're like, oh man, do y'all need a break? And everybody that wants a break can hit the yes. And everybody that wants to keep going can hit the no. So it's a really quick way to get a sense of where things are on the room. And then the hosts, as hosts, I should be able to, I can clear all feedback. So there you go. I just took away all of your yeses and nos. And so we can reset things that way. So that yes, no reaction is going to be important. The faster, the speed up or slow down, the assembly is going to move at the pace the assembly is going to move. So you can say that, and we might pay attention to that a little bit, but it's really the yes and nos that are crucial. And then the last reaction that's really important is that bottom one, and that's the raise hand feature. And so if you raise your hand, unlike the little clappy thing that looks like that, the raise hand feature will stay there indefinitely. And then if you go to the participant list, you'll notice that everybody with a raised hand is shot right up to the top. And so that's going to be really important for when we're going to have conversation about emotion on the floor. And so you'll if you've ever been to an in-person assembly, we normally have 2 or 3 microphones throughout the room. And the way that we have discussion back and forth is people line up with those microphones. And we know who's going first because who gets there first. For this digital assembly, we're going to use the raised hand feature, and that way we'll know who's kind of first in line to speak to the assembly floor. And we'll go over that process in more detail later. But for now, it's just important that you know where that raised hand feature is. And so can everybody go ahead and raise their hand at this point? And let's just see if we can all figure that out, because that's going to be an important one to know. And if you're joining over on a tablet or on a mobile device, the menus are a little bit different, and it's a little bit and so depending on you have to actually I don't have this most recent version installed on my phone, so I'm not sure how that works. Greg Harris is wondering, okay, so again, if you move your cursor across the screen, a menu should be, or it should, there should even just be a menu at the bottom of your screen. And on the very right-hand side, there'll be a reaction. If you click on that reactions emoji, a menu will pop up, and on the biggest bottom button will be raise hand. And that's what you click to raise your hand. And the latest Zoom update, it put all of these this raise hand feature used to be somewhere different than the reactions. And so the reactions were only those top things that disappeared after a few seconds. And then everything else, the other 5 options were found other places. But the raise hand feature through the reactions does now stay up for that until you lower it yourself or one of the Zoom hosts lowers it for you. And so again, if you go back, if you have your hand up, if you go to that reactions, it'll say lower hand and you can put your hand down. So if you're waiting to talk and then somebody says exactly what you're going to say, so you don't need to say anything else, you can go ahead and lower your hand and take yourself out of line.
Phil?
Yes.
It also, just so that people know, because we're experimenting with everybody having their hand raised right now, it will put you in order, in the order that you raised your hand. So kind of take you, whoever put their hand up first.
Yep. Yep, indeed. So we do have a few people, it looks like, on this orientation who have joined either over the phone or using a mobile device. And the Zoom app, there is a mobile app for Zoom that works on tablets and mobile phones, and that is workable. But you'll find the assembly experience much better if you can join using a computer, either a laptop or a desktop that has a webcam and speakers. Having Zoom installed on a computer, the platform is kind of built and is designed in such a way that it's much easier to work especially in a meeting where there's a lot of participants from a computer rather than if you're joining from a tablet or a mobile phone. It's just everything is a little bit more difficult. And Greg pulled up, and then the other thing to do is when you have it, if you when you open Zoom on your, let's see if I can share my screen and let's see if I can make this work. So when you're not in a meeting and you open Zoom, you'll get this kind of you'll get something like this to show up. If you click right here, you'll go down to a settings window will pull up, and you go down to check for updates. And if you click on that, Zoom updates their software pretty regularly. And if you have the most recent version installed, that's going to be the most helpful. So again, once you have Zoom installed on your computer, you click on this, and if you don't have this is our Synod logo and as our profile picture. If you don't have a profile picture, it'll just have your initials usually, or your name maybe. But you click on that, and then you can check for updates, and that's how you get the most recent.
Phil, I don't think you're sharing. I don't think you're sharing the screen you thought you were. We just saw a static screen.
My gosh, It was okay. Let me try that again.
Because if you're trying to share Zoom itself, I don't know if it'll actually share Zoom itself live. You like have to take a video of it.
Nuts. All right. Well, anyways, you know, I tried something on the fly and it didn't work. So, but if you can, that's part of our, in our FAQ sheet. It walks through that process of looking on how to update Zoom to its most recent version. And so make sure you can do that. Make sure you do that before assembly, if at all possible. I'm going to clear your feedback right now, and I'm going to remove my spotlight. And I'm just going to stop right here. And I'll be quiet for a second and see if there are any questions about the raising of the hands and the controls at this point. Ooh, Joanne Resberg raised her hand. So I don't know if that's Joanne or Gary who's on. Do you have a question, you two?
Yeah, this is Gary. There's still quite a few people that have not unselected your video slash, because all we get is a blank screen for them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have a few people that all you see is a number instead of their name. So why don't you go through the selection of putting your name on the screen?
Oh my gosh, Gary, are you part of Senate staff? That's the exact next thing on my agenda, is going through the process on how to rename yourself. What a great segue. I'm so glad you asked, Gary. And so you'll notice that many of the folks on the meeting do have a name there, but there are some folks that either have a phone number for a name or perhaps something else. And there are some of you that have more than one person on a device, and yet there's only one name there. And so for Senate Assembly, what's going to help everybody out is if you can rename yourself to have the names of everyone who's joining with that device. Rename your device with those names. And so the way that you do that is, again, you have to move your cursor and you go, the easiest way that I find is you find your own picture on the screen. And if you have your cursor over that, you should, here, let me get back here so I can, so you should have, the two little blue boxes will pop up in the top right-hand corner, a mute, unmute box, and then one with 3 little dots, the ellipses. If you tap on the ellipses, a menu will pull down, and one of the options will be to rename. And click on that, and then you can type in a name. And so go ahead and let's see if you all can rename yourselves. So why don't you rename yourself, and let's see if we can all become Bob for the day.
Don't you wish?
I do wish every day, Bob, to be you.
Okay, so I have a question, because my computer died, so I do everything on my iPad right now. So there are some differences, but I seem to be making this work okay.
Yeah.
but-
So
Okay, my question is that the 2 representatives from Trinity and the 2 from Peace, we're all going to do it together.
Yep.
So should we just use one device?
Yep.
Okay.
Just use one device. Yep,
Good. We'll,
that's,
we'll put Ian in charge.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, delegate.
Okay. Great. Thank
Like,
you.
I see Louise and Jareen are very excited about that news as well. So, um,
And put all three of your names
Yep.
in the name renaming.
Yep. So then on that device, Gail, you'll have, yeah, and iPads. I'm getting a note that that Deb Hart's iPad will not let her rename as well, and that's if that happens, Deb, you did the exact right thing, and you just let us know in chat that you can't rename yourself, and then let me see if I can find you as host. I almost removed you. I don't want to do that. Look at it. I can rename Deb Hart. And so, so if you're having issues renaming yourself, let us know, and then we can make sure to rename, to get you named correctly. And so
well,
all of
I think I'll just be Bob.
there you go. Now that for those of you that renamed yourself Bob, go ahead and rename yourself your real name. All right.
I have iPad, and in the right, oh shoot, it says, oh there, participants, and that's where I changed my name.
Yep. So that's the other way that you can change your name. If you go to the participant list and hover over your own name, you'll get a more button, and one of the options will be to rename. And so there are a couple of different ways that you can rename. And again, one of the reasons why we're asking folks to get signed on to Senate Assembly ahead of time is so that we can work all of this out before the business session opens at 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Mountain. Mary, do you have something?
Yeah, so I'm wondering if the names, if it has any bearing whether, let's say there are two people on the same device, if they are both the voting members or not. For example, hello, Charlie and Carol Cranenbuhl, and I see that you just have Charlie Cranenbuhl in your name instead of Charlie and Carol.
I will be on my own computer during the Senate Assembly. We were
Okay.
eating lunch, and this was just the easiest thing to do right now.
Yeah, that's fine, but I'm just wondering, kind of the question for everyone. What's best, Phil?
Yeah.
And do they need, or should they put their congregation with their name as part of the getting credentialing done at the beginning of assembly?
No, because we have all of that information on the spreadsheet. So all we really need is name. I think rename with everybody that's on that device, just so that we know who's in the room. And then as we go through the meeting, we'll have that spreadsheet as far as who's voting members, who have voice and vote, and who are simply there, who aren't on that list, or who are on the list as observers. And observers do not have voice or vote, is my understanding. And so, and as
Melody just put in the chat, yes, first and last names, please. So Melody Green is our Synod admin and one of the people who will be doing tech support during the assembly. And so that will help the people doing tech support to have both your first and last names of everyone on your box. If you're on two devices, you're good.
Yeah.
Two separate devices.
All right. So yeah, and that's going back to the setup. If you have more than one person or more than one device on the meeting in the same room, that can be really problematic for feedback. So you need to either make sure one device remains muted and also the speakers all the way off all the way, or you need to make sure that that you're separated by a room, or else you'll get a pretty nasty we'll get a pretty nasty feedback loop for the rest of the meeting. And so so that's a good tip there, Lori. Thanks for that. Any questions about renaming yourself? And so that's something that we hope to take care of in that check-in time from 8 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Mountain to 9 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Mountain. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to elections. Now, for the elections for Senate Council or 2022 churchwide assembly voting members, we get to elect. The Northwest Intermountain Synod gets to send 7 people to our churchwide assembly, which is like a Senate assembly on steroids, in the summer of 2022. And so we'll have an election for that, and there'll be up to 3 ballots for that election. We'll have an election for our 2021 Senate for Senate Council member and Senate committee members for terms starting this year in 2021. And that election will only require 1 ballot. And then we'll have an election because we have Senate assemblies every other year. Next year, we're going to give our regional gatherings a go. We have to elect members to Senate Council and Senate committees for terms starting in the year 2022. And so that's the 3rd election that we'll have, and there'll be up to 3 ballots for that election. And so there'll be up to 7 different election runner ballots, and that's using a different election runner is a separate voting platform from Zoom. And the good thing about it is that each of you already should have in your email inbox an email from Election Runner inviting you to take place in the Northwest Intermountain Synod the trial election for the Northwest Intermountain Synod Assembly. Here, and I'm going to do this.
Phil, the return address is not Election Runner, it's the Synod office. So don't look for Election Runner in your email.
Well, yeah, so the email is no reply at electionrunner.com, but the heading that comes up is Northwest Intermountain Synod ELCA is the name. And here, and I'll show you what this looks like right now. So in your email box, you'll get it'll look like this, and you'll get an email. Then this will be the heading: trial election for the Northwest Intermountain Synod, and it'll have our logo when you pull it up, and you can scroll down and it'll say greetings, and it'll be your name. This is a test election for the for this 2021 Northwest Intermountain Synod Assembly, and you're being asked to vote on this during Synod Assembly orientation. And then if you have issues, it's my email right there. And then underneath that, there's a voter ID and a voter key. You shouldn't need those. If you click on this button, click here to vote, what's going to happen is it'll take you right, and it should log you right in to the election. If for some reason, see. And Bill, I will follow up with you following this orientation. We got a kickback response from 7 different emails. And so I need to figure out what's going on with those emails. And so Bill, yours must have been one of the ones that bounced back. And the good news is we have 14 days to figure out what's going on, which is exactly why we're doing this trial. So we can figure all this out and figure out where the wrinkles are that we need to. But then you'll be, and you'll have to, and I'm not going to vote because then I'll give away the answers. Well, maybe I will vote, just so you can see what this looks like. Cappuccino Heat Bar Crunch. That's my favorite Blizzard. And I have no clue. I thought I had an idea, but then I realized I don't. And so you fill out the ballot, and then at the bottom, it's you hit the submit ballot button. You'll get a confirmation message. Are you sure you want to submit your ballot? If you hit cancel, you can go back and change your vote. If you hit submit yes, that's you have participated in the election and you can't go back and re-vote. So so that's how we're going to do the elections for the for voting members for churchwide assembly and for Synod assembly members and committee members. So if you could go ahead and take a couple minutes and want to see if you can go ahead and vote in that election right now, then we can come back and we can see if you have any questions or if you got any hangups as far as that. But it's a pretty seamless process. You can vote on your PC, or you can also vote on a mobile device. And so you don't need to vote with the same device that you are logged into the Zoom meeting on. So if you have, it might be easiest to have a mobile phone with you and vote on your mobile phone, and then you don't have to worry about closing out of your Zoom meeting window. But either way works. And but what we want to make sure is that everybody has the chance to practice this using Election Runner before we get to the yeah. And Andy, good question. So if you're doing Zoom as a group, each member will have to have access to their email. And so again, if you have a mobile device with email, access to your email on a mobile device, that's probably the simplest way to do it. You could also, if you're setting up it in a congregation or in a church, you could have a second laptop that people just quickly log into their email on that, and then log out to participate in the elections. But there'll be 7 different during assembly. There'll be up to 7 different times that you need to find an Election Runner link in your email, and then click on that and vote in the elections.
Now, Phil, I was able to and this is on a regular laptop, I was able to just go down to my email box at the bottom and click on that and get it all.
Yep.
And then when you turn it off, you get back to you.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, it should be pretty straightforward. And if for some reason during this test it's not straightforward with you, I'm going to put my email was in that Election Runner email, and it's been in other places as well, but I'm going to put it in the and I'm going to also put, so my email and my cell number, which are in the chat, are what you want to call, reach out to between now and the election, so that we can figure this out together, and that we can make sure that things go smoothly during Senate Assembly.
Okay, so I am totally lost.
All right. So
I'm sorry, but
no problem, Gail. So what you'll need to do, so to vote in the election, Gail, you need to check your email. And so you can do that on your tablet, on your iPad, or
yeah, we're not doing that right now, are we? Do I need to go back to my email?
Yeah, if you could do that now, that would be the best. If you wait to do it later, because right now, if you can figure it out.
Okay, go, Greg. Okay,
so,
I'll just go back to my email. Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Go to your email. Find the email from the Northwest Intermountain Synod, ELCA, that says trial election for the Northwest Intermountain Synod. Open that email. Click on the click here to vote. Tap on that button. Fill out your ballot. Buy me a cappuccino Heath Bar Crunch Blizzard and send it to me in Post Falls.
I think I'll go buy a computer tomorrow.
and then let me know that you're able to vote in the election.
Okay, great.
And so, Gail, what this means is bring your tablet with you when you join the Senate Assembly, so that you can use your tablet to just quickly get on your email and participate in the voting process. And then ask Pastor
Oh, I
Ian.
see. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, I'm working at it.
And so, and just so that everyone knows, so through the election runner voting platform, I can see who has voted and who hasn't voted. The voting is anonymous. And so as the election official, I cannot see what you voted. But I can see who has voted and who hasn't. And so the plan is to make sure that each voting member has participated in this test election before assembly. And those who haven't done so successfully, Senate staff and the IT helpers will be able to follow up with them. And so to make sure that everybody understands this process before the 24th, so that when we get to the 24th, it'll all go super quick. And so that's why we're testing it out in this way, and we want to make sure that that everybody has an opportunity to vote and try it out.
Okay, excellent.
Great. And so good, Gail. Glad you figured it out. And again, there were a handful of folks that, for whatever reason, the email from Election Runner got bumped. And so I have that list already, and I'll be following up with those folks like you, Bill. And so if you don't have that email in your inbox, know that somebody's going to follow up with you to make sure that that everything is running smoothly and is good to go for the election process. So Alice asks, Do we need to save the email for voting, or will another be sent? Another one will be sent. So you can, after you voted in that election, you can just go ahead and delete that email. If you try to click click here to, or if you tap on the click here to vote button again after you've already submitted your ballot, it'll take you to the election runner website, but it'll say you've already participated in this election. So it won't, you may be able to vote early if the election is open early, but you can't vote often using election runner. And so, and actually the elections will not be opened early. Like this one was sent out an hour before the session started. That will not be the case during assembly. But for each ballot, essentially, a different email will be sent out. And so there's no, after you vote, there's no need to save that email unless you really, really want to. I see a hand raised by Joanne.
Yeah, this is Gary again. Hey, we just tried to double vote and it flags it, won't let you do it.
Yep. You're right. So you can't double vote. So good try.
So were you each trying to vote separately because you both are voting members?
We'll use our own phones.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
So
I'm seeing a lot of green check marks come up. For those of you who haven't put a green check mark, are you able to vote or not? Or are you reading your chat box? That was just a test to see if you're reading the chats.
all right.
Oh,
Sorry, Gail.
oh my gosh, there's only so much I can do at one time. I just want to make sure there's no fake elections.
That's right.
So do we.
So Sharon and Ron, I saw a hand up from you guys. Do you guys have a question?
Yeah, we each are voting members, and we each had our separate cell phones, and we each got separate emails.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do mine just fine, but Ron's would not vote. But we did vote on the computer, and he was able to do that. But
Oh,
I
okay.
was wondering why with two phones in the same vicinity but it was two different emails, so.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue was there. And so I'm glad you're able to figure it out. So good job. But I don't, I'm not sure what the issue was there.
Okay.
If they have the same email, can they vote with one? So I tested that out, Doug. And what happens if, sorry, my son is inhaling helium and talking to me. This is, oh my gosh. Yeah, talk about a distraction. So so there are a few folks where both voting members are registered with the same email. What should happen if that's the case is they'll get, essentially that email will get two emails from election runner, from the Northwest Intermountain Synod election runner. And when you open those emails, one will say Bobby Sue, voting member, and another one will say Frankie Joe. And so each voting member, so it should work even if voting members share a same email, there'll be separate links. That shouldn't be an issue, and I confirmed that in some test elections that I did with myself. And so yeah, that should be good. It'll just be two separate emails sent to the same address, but it clarifies in the body of the email who's voting, which one's voting for that person. Let's see. So that brings us to, so any other questions about the voting process? And thanks y'all for for the green checks and letting us know that you got it figured out. I'm going to go ahead and clear those out so that we can see if there's any questions about the voting process. All right. So before we move on, I'm just going to see if we can't figure out who is on here with who is dialed in by phone, and is that just somebody here for audio? Who has the 50? Could I ask who is the 509 number that ends in 019? And if you're listening on the phone, how you unmute yourself on a phone is by pressing *6. So on your phone, if you press *6, there you go. So who is that on the phone?
Rex Rutledge.
Oh, hey, Rex, how are you?
Oh, I remember him. Yeah.
All right. Well, Rex, I'm glad you're listening along, and I'm grateful to hear that that the folks from Colfax and Endicott are all going to join together and do this. And so you listening in is great, Rex. If you have access to your email and you can practice and you can have access to that voting and take and vote in that trial election, that would be fabulous. But it's good to have you listening along, and you can trust Louise and Jareen and Pastor Ian and Gail to help with the Zoom stuff when you're on for assembly.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pastor Phil.
All right. Thank you, Rex. Glad you're here. I'm going to go ahead and mute you now, Rex. All right.
Sounds good. Yep.
All right. Wonderful. So the next piece that I want to go over is when we have discussion from the floor. And as I alluded to before, this is where the raised hand feature is going to be important. So so we're going to be following Robert's Rules of Order for our Senate Assembly. And so per Robert's rules, when a motion is made, it is then seconded. Then it's after the second that discussion is opened up on a motion. And we have one memorial coming before assembly. And in the case for memorials and resolutions, once it's moved and seconded, the group or the person bringing the memorial or the resolution to the floor has an opportunity to speak to the motion that's made. And then the way it works is if possible, it alternates for people speaking against and for the motion. So we start with somebody speaking for a motion, and then next we would go to somebody speaking against the motion. Then we would go to somebody speaking for, as long as we can alternate. If there's like 5 people speaking for and only 1 speaking against, we'd speak for the motion, then against, and then the next 4 people would speak for the motion. And so the way we're going to run discussion is if you want to speak to something that's being considered or speak to the assembly floor, what you do is you go to the reactions and you find that raise hand feature, not the clappy feature, not the thumbs up, but the one that says raise hand. You raise your hand, and when you do that, what's going to happen is you'll be, your name, the device name, I guess you're on would be the way to say it, will jump up to the top of the participants list. When that happens, we're going to have, we have a group of Zoom moderators, and what they're going to do is they'll reach out to you using a direct message and just inquire, are you speaking for or against, or are you speaking, are you calling for a point of order? if you've ever been to Senate Assembly, you'll probably remember that you usually get an envelope with a green, a red, and a white card, correct? And so when you walk up to the microphone, you bring, if you're speaking for, you bring your green card, so we know what you're asking for. If you're speaking against, you bring your red card, so we know what you're going to the mic for. The white card is calling for a point of order. And so to speak to the floor, what you do is you raise your hand, and then a Zoom moderator will reach out and say, are you speaking for or against the motion? And then what the moderator is going to do is in the chat, this will be the chat to everyone in meeting, they'll line up the people speaking for. So for example, right now I have and then the real Bob. So in the chat, you'll be lined up like that. So we know that Phil's speaking for, then the real Bob's speaking against, and then Paul Malik's calling for a point of order. So the whole assembly will be able to know who's coming up and what the order of speakers are going to be. Now you cannot speak, and this is per Robert's rules. You cannot speak until somebody is recognized by the chair of the assembly. And so just because you have your hand up doesn't mean you get to unmute your microphone. And so like right now, if Bob tries to unmute his microphone, I'm just gonna.
Hey. What do you mean?
Well, I'm not fast enough. Where? My gosh. I tried to mute in the there. So I'm gonna mute him real quick because you cannot speak until you're recognized by the chair. And so, but that's how we are going to line people up is using the raised hand feature. And then a moderator will reach out to those who have their hands up, and will let everyone in the assembly know the order of people who are going to speak. And so I'm gonna lower all of our hands because I want to make sure. There we go. So so that's how conversation is, or how discussion is going to work. Now, also per Robert's rules, each person addressing the floor only has 3 minutes to speak for or against or calling for a point of order. So we're also going to have a timer. And so as you're speaking, you'll get a 1 minute warning. Then you'll get a, I forget how you do 30. But you'll have a 30-second, I'm trying to figure out sign language as I'm talking. You'll have a 30-second warning and then a 10-second warning. And then at the 3-minute mark, the person's microphone will be muted, and then we'll move on to who's next in the meeting or who's next in the line. And really, that's the same way that it worked in person as well. If you'll remember, if somebody would run over, we could just mute their microphone, and we'd move on to the next person. So it's going to the only difference is how you line up. Once you get in line, and the kind of the remote gathering of it. But once the discussion actually begins, it's the same rules and the same process that we use for any Senate assembly. Any questions about discussion? And all right.
So no filibuster?
No, there's no filibuster. And I should also remember, oh man, I have to go. We do have a parliamentarian. And I forget, there is discussion cannot go on indefinitely. I think it's limited to 24 minutes after a motion is made and seconded. And so 20, that would be 8 people can speak to it, I think is what's called for. So discussion itself can't go on indefinitely either. So no, there's no, we are going to get through this thing.
I hope so.
Yep. And John Lorman is our parliamentarian for Senate Assembly. And so those of you who have been around, John served on Senate Council for a number of years. He was also on Churchwide Council, served a term on Churchwide Council, and is a happily retired judge, and will certainly keep us in mind. So we're grateful for John serving as our parliamentarian. So any questions on discussion? So and then just one final thing about addressing the assembly floor. Every voting member has right to voice and vote. And so if there's some reason that you feel called to address the assembly floor when a motion's not being made, the same process kind of holds true. Is raise your hand. A Zoom moderator will reach out to you and say, okay, what's going on, and we'll inquire, and you'll say, I'd like to address the assembly floor because this, and that. That message will then be passed on to the chair, who's Bishop Kristen. And then once Bishop Kristen recognizes you is when you can speak to the floor of the assembly. And so if even not during discussion, if a point of order is wanting to be made, that's how you go about being recognized, is by raising your hand. And again, a moderator will reach out via chat to inquire what you will, and then once recognized by the chair, then you can address the assembly. So it'd be same thing, very similar to in person, where if you want to address the floor, you walk up to the microphone and hold up one of those cards. And typically when it's not during a discussion for or against a motion, it's a white card where you're calling for some sort of point of order or wanting to be recognized for some reason, either other than speaking for or against something. So some final notes as we're wrapping up our time together. We have a team of folks on standby during assembly for kind of IT as a IT help desk. The way that we're managing that is, what you will do is, if you have some sort of IT issues, the best way to go about this is, and this is part of on the tip sheet and is in other assembly documents, but is to text my cell phone number, and that's, I'll put that in the chat again. Text with the, oops, I need to be actually typing to, so if you could text that number with the nature of your issue, and it just needs to be brief, like you can just say Zoom connection, and then one of the IT help desk folks will call that number back and then troubleshoot whatever issue you are having. And so that's going to be, that's the best way that we can figure out how to manage kind of the IT help desk. And so text that number with the nature of your issue, and then somebody will call you to troubleshoot the issue for you. Cheryl, I see you have a hand up. You have to unmute yourself, and then you can talk to us. There you go.
I did want to double check. So we text to that phone number if
Yep.
we have a tech problem.
Yep.
I wanted to double check and make sure I understood correctly. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. We've been asked, what if somebody doesn't text? My gosh, if somebody doesn't text, you might want to think about having somebody else be a voting member for the Senate Assembly, I think. You know, I see some people laughing at that, but I mean, in all seriousness, this assembly, we've tried to make it pretty abundantly clear that this assembly does take at least a basic level of being able to work some remote technology. And so if that's where you're at, or if that's an issue, then look at possibly exploring doing a pod, kind of joining the assembly as a pod, as some of our congregations are doing, where all the voting members are joining on one device in a room together. And that way you can help each other out. But again, that's the IT help desk, the deal. And so we're again, we have a team of folks who hopefully can troubleshoot just about any tech issue that might arise in that process. Once so Joanne and Gary, I see one of you have a hand up.
Yeah, a technical point for everybody. If you're unmuted and you're talking, try not to move around your body, because that will change your audio, so you may not be coming through clear and you won't know it.
Yep.
Be still when you're talking.
Yep. So that does. Yep. Yeah. Thanks for that, Gary. There's a lot of the microphones on computers are very directional. So if you're not right in front of it, it's not picking you up. We've Zoomed with family, and my brother, for instance, when they're with whoever's, they're all lined up like this, and whoever's sitting on the side of the screen, we can't hear them at all when they're talking. It's only the people that are directly in front. A headset really is helpful for that. If you can't sit still, think about a headset. I have a question in the chat for tech support. If somebody wants to put a request in chat, that would work as well. We're going to monitor the chat in Zoom the whole time also, so that would also be an option. We wanted to make sure there was a non-Zoom avenue to get to the IT help desk to ensure that that if Zoom was the thing that folks were having an issue with, that they still had a means to get the assistance and the troubleshooting that they needed. Now, if your congregation already elected the voting members and you have who you have and that may not be tech savvy, you still have 2 weeks to troubleshoot and figure out a plan of how folks from your congregation can join in the assembly and participate. Again, with vaccines rolling out, I know a number of our assembly participants are all vaccinated, and so per CDC guidelines, if everybody's vaccinated, you can gather in a room together safely with other vaccinated folks. And so that's a really good way to do it. Otherwise, work with them and do Zoom tutorials to get them up to speed so that they can fully participate. Synods that have done this before have found it to be a meaningful and effective and enriching way to carry out a Synod assembly. But I think especially in the early days of Zoom, we've all been there when the tech stuff isn't working, and that can lead to a really frustrating and long day if things are kind of glitchy on your end. So the more you can do on this side of things to get things set up well, the better that things are going to go. The other note is this link that you got into this Zoom meeting is going to be the same link that it's the same meeting link that will be available for Senate Assembly. We're using the same Zoom link for all things Senate Assembly related. You don't need to save this email because other emails will be sent out, but you certainly can copy and paste this link into your calendar because it's the same Zoom link. The day of assembly, this Zoom meeting is just going to stay open all day long from 8 a.m. Pacific all the way till we're close the business session and close the assembly. Now, we're not going to sit in front of our computers or our devices for 8 hours straight. There are breaks built in. If you look at the agenda, there's breaks built in. There's lunch breaks built in. You can just leave your device on and stay in the Zoom meeting, or you can leave the Zoom meeting and then come back on later. Either will work. Either of those will work fine if you. But once you're checked in the morning to Senate Assembly, you're checked in for all of Assembly, and so and since it is the same link the whole time, if something happens on your end, and let's say your internet goes out and you drop off the meeting, once you get things rebooted and just jump back on using that same link. And when you rejoin the meeting, you'll be put in the waiting room at first, but then a Zoom moderator will let you back in the meeting. And so if you get disconnected, don't panic. You won't be locked out for the whole meeting. You can jump back on. Any final questions? That brings me to the end of my list of what we had to go through. Well, thank you all for being here. If you would like if you want to walk through all of this again, you can join one of our other orientation sessions. We've had some people ask, do we have to go to all of the orientation sessions? No, we hope that you get to one. So if you made it to this one, good job. You're free from your duties from joining any of those on the 20th. And so we'll see you on the 24th. Otherwise, yes, Mary.
Sorry, there is a question from Alice Allison. How will the check-in work?
I'll let Melody speak to that if she's still here.
Yeah, so check-in is going to be everybody will log in hopefully an hour before business starts, and we will be admitting people from the waiting room and checking you off on a spreadsheet, and then that's pretty much it. So it'll take some time because we have to go through a couple of lists to kind of compare and mark people off, but it's pretty simple. Just show up.
And Melody, once they're checked in, let's say they get it on at 8 o'clock and they get checked in by say 8:15, they don't need to stay right there. They need to stay logged in, but they can come back right when business starts at a few minutes before 9.
Yeah, so thanks, Mary. Yeah, once you're checked in, you can like turn off your camera and mute your microphone, and you can like wander away as long as you come back to the computer at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m., but depending on what time zone you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks for speaking to that, Melody and Mary. Thanks for lifting up that question.
I have a quick question. Okay,
Sure.
so it says on my iPad that this is being recorded.
Yes.
So does that mean I can watch it again?
Yep. So we'll post the recording of this to our website, and so that you can go back and if you would like to watch it again, what we'll do is we'll upload it to our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch it through a link to YouTube, and you don't have to even watch all of it. You can just skip around to the parts that you want to get back to.
Just to
go over
clarify
again.
some things.
Yep.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay,
Yep.
great.
All right. Just scanning the chat to make sure there's no other questions. And all right. There's one other message down there. Oh, it's just a thank you. You're welcome. And so we even ended 6 minutes early, which is great. So I'll stick around if folks have other questions or anything like that. Otherwise, you are all free to go. And thanks again for being here. I certainly appreciate it and look forward to seeing you on the 24th.
Hey, Phil, this is Bill.
Hey,
Do you want
Bill.
to work through that email issue on the elections now, or should I just drop you an email with the correct address?
Yeah, why don't you just send me an email with the correct address, and we can take it from there.
Okay. Yeah, Heidi Cryer registered for me, so she might have had a typo or something. I've been getting the notices for the links and things like that, so that part's working.
Okay, yeah, and I found one other email that had a typo as well, and it was a typo from the registration list into the spreadsheet. And so, with a few hundred email entries, it's easy to have a quick typo. And so that's likely what it is, but we'll just confirm that and work through that issue. So
okay.
Thanks, Bill.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
You too. All right. And then Greg, I don't know if you're still here or not, or if you want to talk through some of the things that you lifted up in direct message. Looks like he might be gone. Gail, I'm going to go ahead and wait. No, I'm not going to remove you from the meeting. There you go. All right. Well, I'm going to leave the meeting myself. And I'm going to